Sorry, I'm a little late. Thankfully, I was able to get here in the nick of time using my Data Accelerator. Welcome back to the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show, your regular blast of all things new, cool, and powerful in the world of SAS Viya. We've got a packed show today, so let's break it down. First up, our resident explorer of the SAS Viya frontier, David Vike, takes us on a journey into the SAS Viyaverse to share his favorite new features. Then we'll zoom into those SAS Studio features with Alexi Vaudelin for a deep dive into the new column-level lineage and impact analysis features in SAS Studio during the rundown. And finally, we'll shift things into high gear in our Release Talk segment, where we will interview Jason Sikorsky about SAS Data Accelerator, what it is, why it matters, and how it's changing the game. Let's not waste another second. Let's dive into the SAS Viyaverse with David Vike.
And welcome back. We are starting things off inside of SAS Information Catalog, where the search has received two new facets that we can make use of to identify which flows use certain columns. For that, we can go in here and search for step, and then you can see step input column and output column. This enables us to search for specific column names that are the in or outputs of a step inside of a flow. So let's search for the step input column called MSRP from the famous SAS Help course dataset, and we can see here that it's being used in 9 flows that we could now dig into. So we could say, okay, let's open this one up or explore its lineage. Actually, I've already opened this up. So let's switch over to SAS Studio, where we are going to take a look at a very new feature that is incredibly helpful. For that, we are heading over to the libraries pane, where we can take a look inside of permanent libraries like this WASO base library that I have here. And I have this data set here, HP price high. If I right click it, I have a new menu entry called View Impact Analysis. Let's open it up, and we can see here we have 2 pieces to this. First up is we can analyze which columns, we can select which column we want to analyze. In my case, I've selected price per HP. Now, with the forward look, we can see where this column is being used after it has been added to this table. So in this case, we can see there is a secondary flow called further processing, and in there is a visualize step, and then it's being used as part of the box plot topic. So from the column to the flow to the swim lane to the specific element that we have. And we can also look in reverse. Where did this column come from? So here we can see our impact analysis flow. Then we can see it's being used in the branch row step. And then there is the query step. And here we can see there is this route icon that indicates it was changed here. And we can see, okay, it must be created from these 2 columns. So let's take a look at this flow. And here we can see the query node. So let's open that up. And in here we can see, okay, it's a calculated item. So let's dig into it. And we can see it's MSRP divided by horsepower. So really cool way to help us understand how are columns being created, how they're being changed and used. This is really powerful from an end user perspective to help me quickly identify when, for example, I run into issues with my column upstream because someone changed the ETL flow downstream. Really, really cool to help us understand and identify issues faster. In addition to the impact analysis, we also have another new feature for our flows, which we can find on the right-hand side in the status handling pane. Here, we can add a condition that allows us to send the flow status to a table so that we can easily check that table, maybe run automated scripts on top of it to quickly understand how our processing is being done. Really helpful features, especially if you have large estates of SAS flows that you are scheduling. Let's switch gear and jump over into Model Studio, where we have new capabilities around working with projects. The first one is one that is really coming in handy already. When you click on a project, you can say duplicate. And of course, this works across forecasting, text analytics, and machine learning projects. And you can duplicate it. Let's go ahead and talk about the second new feature when it comes to projects. And that's the ability to change from the My folder directly in here and put it into any other folder that you have write access to. Of course, this capability is also available when you set up a new project so that it doesn't ever end up within your My folder, but is immediately available to whoever should have access. This is a great new feature to enhance collaboration and to make it more easy to share your projects with others. As a final step, we will jump into SAS Studio, where we will be taking a look at an enhancement that has been added to a proc. This time we will be taking a look at the proc text profile, which enables you to create statistical characteristics about a set of documents and even compare it against standard corpus of documents. But with a new feature, you now get even more detailed access. So the new feature is called out to library or out to lib, if you want to save a couple of characters. And up here, I created a small data set of customer complaints, I would say. And let's run this piece here and take a look what we are getting from this code. We have received a whole bunch of tables within our SAS user here. And as you can see, these tables contain a bunch of different metrics around our data set. So let's open up this customer complaint stats one. And here you can see the comparison against 3 different standard text corpuses. Note that this isn't necessarily available for all languages, but it is for English. I'm not necessarily interested in these specific stats and comparison against others. But what I am interested in is the details about my specific set of documents. For example, let's jump up here and take a look at the customer complaints out doc. Here we can see the number of sentences and the max token sentence within each document. We can also look at document lengths to see how many sentences and number of documents we have within it. We can take a look at the number of tokens for each individual sentence within them. Very interestingly, we can see word counts, their types, how many characters they contain, and all of these features really enable us to dive deep into the comparison of different corpuses of documents, which will enable us to identify how different these are without ever even having to go into embeddings. We can just take a look at the structural components of these documents and can understand if they fit our certain use cases or how different they are to an existing use case in order to evaluate if they are a good fit or if we need to reconsider our pipelines. This is a very powerful new feature here. I hope you enjoyed these awesome new features. I mean, the extension into Lineage and deep diving where columns come from are super helpful in my day-to-day work, and I hope they are as well in yours. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Wow, David never disappoints. And speaking of the features he mentioned, let's take a closer look at them. Here to break down column-level lineage and impact analysis in SAS Studio is Alexei Vaudilin with this month's rundown.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexei. I'm Senior Product Manager here at SAS, and in this segment we are going to take a look at column level lineage functionality in Viya platform, as well as new impact analysis UI in SAS Studio. So what does that mean exactly? In 2025-09 release, we introduced support of column-level lineage for data pipelines, which means that now you can track column-level lineage as well. So not only table level as it was possible before. So this is very important enhancement that we have done. And second, we also introduced a new impact analysis UI within SAS Studio that allows you to work with this information faster, easier, and also you have this UI within SAS Studio, so exactly in the place where you work with data pipelines, which makes it very convenient to use it. So let's dive in and take a look at all of this. So I'm already in SAS Studio, as you can see, and to get access to this new capability to impact analysis, you would need to go to libraries pane in SAS Studio. So this is the pane where we have all connections to different data sources. And then you would first need to obviously find a connection that you would like to use. So the library, you can use search functionality, or you can just find this in the list. So, and then once you expand your library, you would need to find the table that you would like to analyze. So as you can see here in this library, I have a few tables. So I'm going to pick cars just for the sake of our demo. And then, so once you right click on a table, you will see a new menu that we introduced in this release, which is called View Impact Analysis. And then you just click on this menu, and this will bring a new tab within SAS Studio UI that will actually allow you to work with impact analysis. So let's stay here for a moment and take a look at all capabilities that UI offers. Let's probably start from top to bottom, and at the very top of this step, you can see that there is a library name and the table name. So this is so-called subject of analysis. So this is the table, in this case, that we are going to analyze. Underneath, you can see possibility to select a column for analysis, and we will come back to this menu just a little bit later. And after that, there are a couple of tabs that allow you to work with either forward or reverse impact analysis. Forward impact analysis means that you would like to see all downstream assets, in this case data pipelines, that are using this particular table. So in this case, as you can see, we have multiple SAS Studio flows or data pipelines that are using this table. So this table is important for all of these data pipelines. And then you can and then you also have here reverse impact analysis tab, which will show you how this particular table is created. So essentially, this is all about upstream origin of this table. So this is the basic information about the UI. Now let's dive into a few details here. So as I've already said, as you can see, we have multiple SAS Studio flows that are using this table, and then let's just pick one of those and expand it. Once you expand this, you can see all transformations in this data pipeline where this particular table cars is used. In here, you see the name of the transformation. So this is just the name of the transformation that you've given to a particular step. And then on the right-hand side, you can also see the type of this transformation, right? So if you just in case do not remember, so what this transformation exactly means, right? So you can take a look that there is a type of the transformation, which is load table in this case. We also show the icons for all of the transformations that it's easier for you, again, to understand the purpose of a particular transformation. The next important capability that I wanted to highlight here is so-called hierarchies. So for example, when we see that there is a particular table which is created as part of this data pipeline, and in our case, this load table step creates this cars data mart table, then we automatically make this table also a subject of analysis so that you can expand this further and see how this particular table is used, right? So now we are taking cars data mart table as a subject of analysis, and we see which flows are using this table. And this embeddings, this hierarchy can just go as long as it's needed. So this is one of the important capabilities that we have here. So next, well, as promised, let's take a look actually at column level. Column level is very important. So for this purpose, I can select Analyze Column button here, and select one of the columns that I have in my data set. So I'm going to select MSRP, which is just the retail price of a particular car. So we can expand the same data pipeline here, and as you can see, so there is usage of this column throughout the whole data pipeline. But this one is, well, relatively boring, so because there are no changes with the column MSRP, so it just goes through the whole data pipeline from the beginning to the end. So let's take a look at something which can be more interesting. For example, this first one. And here, so what you can mention is exactly the place where column level lineage is very important. As you can see, MSRP, the source column, is being transformed as part of this data pipeline, and actually even a couple of times. So it goes in as MSRP, but then in this transformation, for example, in rename price column transformation, it's being renamed from average car MSRP to average car price column. And this is something what you can immediately see from this impact analysis view. So now you have complete understanding, right, that you had MSRP column in the very beginning, and then throughout this data pipeline, so it became average car price column. We also show here the indicator that there was a change in a column so that you can quickly see in which transformation there was a change. So this is in particular useful for large data pipelines. I also wanted to show you that obviously from the impact analysis view, so you can always double click on any of the flows that you see there, and this will open them in a separate tab. So it's very handy. You can work with flows, with any other assets, and impact analysis just in the tabs which are close to each other. So very convenient. So everything is at hand. So thank you so much for watching the demo. I hope this was useful. And if you have any questions, just let me know in comments or in any other way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexei. Now that we've seen how SAS Studio is leveling up, let's talk about something that's all about speed: SAS Data Accelerator. Joining us for the release talk is one expert who knows this tech inside and out, Jason Sikorsky, who will walk us through what Data Accelerator is, how it works, and why it's a big deal for anyone working with large-scale data. Let's get right into it. Hello, Jason. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming. So I was being a little silly in the beginning. You know, data acceleration doesn't help you run faster. Could you actually tell us what data acceleration is and what it entails?
Yeah, sure thing. So the concept of data acceleration is tied to one key principle. Rather than taking the data to the compute, we want to take the compute to the data. So over the last 10 years or so, we've really seen an explosion in the amount of data created and consumed by our customers. And this can often mean that the traditional model of moving the data to the compute server or loading it into CAS can be costly and time-consuming. Data acceleration is focused not on requiring the customer to move their data. Instead, we want to let the data stay in place where it's stored and push the compute that SAS does into or as close as possible to the database. And this can be really huge for our customers. When they're trying to analyze billions of rows of data, we can't be pulling that out all of the time to process in SAS software. The other side of my team's work is focused on reducing the amount of memory and CPU required to run CAS. So traditionally, customers have had to load all of their data into CAS memory for applications such as SAS Visual Analytics. And this can be costly to start up all those CAS workers when it comes to really large amounts of data. My team's also been focusing on trying to push down those operations into the database, and it reduces the amount of load on the CAS server and the amount of memory that's needed. What you get out of this is an improvement in performance as well as lower costs.
Gotcha. Love that. Love lower costs. Love performance improvements. What else does this mean for SAS customers?
Right. So to address the challenges with CAS memory, we've created something called SAS Speedy Store, where we combine Viya with the single store database management system. So instead of loading your data into CAS worker memory, you leave it in the database, you leave it in single store, and we either push the computation into single store or very quickly we parallel stream it out into CAS. And we're not storing it in CAS, we're just streaming it through CAS and putting the results back into single store. This enables you to process really huge volumes of data with fewer CAS workers. So to give a few more specifics about what we can push down, traditionally we've done scoring. This is where you generate a model with SAS software and we can publish and run that model in the database. A lot of people use data step to prep their data. You can push those data steps down into the database to do your data prep on really large tables. And somewhat new is doing aggregations. So certain procs and CAS actions that you use for summary stats or to get distinct values, we'll push those down into the database as SQL. Another big piece to this is security. So you're not having to extract data. You can leave it in the database. Leaving it in the database with database grants can provide extra protections. To mention a few of the platforms where we do this, scoring and data step pushdown is done in Synapse, Teradata, and Databricks, and single store gets those as well as the aggregate pushdown.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like there's a lot of different ways to bring the compute to data, as you said. I heard that there's a relaunch on the horizon as well. Could you tell us a little bit about what the relaunch brings? What should we expect?
Sure thing. So we've been doing in database for a little while. The big change in this release is what we call the universal in database architecture. This is a new architecture for how we approach this functionality, and it brings some key advantages. The first is that it allows us to standardize our approach to implementing and delivering this capability. This means we can deliver support for new data sources more quickly. We no longer need to build a custom implementation for each new data source. For example, we're planning on adding support for Cloudera before the relaunch. It also means that it's easier to support. Having less data source specific code means more consistency. Making our software easier to support means a better experience for our customers.
Perfect. Jason, you've told us a lot of things already about data acceleration, but I want to see it with my own eyes. Do you have a demo that you could possibly show us and tell us how it could benefit our customers?
Yeah, let's take a look. Here I'm running SAS Visual Analytics. I've got a report. It's operating on 1 billion rows and 13 columns. We're using 3 CAS workers. On the left, we've loaded the data into CAS memory, and on the right, we've left the data in single store. So let's interact with the report. We filter on an origin, and we select the same origin for the CAS based and for the single store based. And you'll notice right away, single store comes right back on these processing the billion rows. Now let's filter again on the CN code this time. We'll select the same CN code for both. And you'll see that the single store report, it comes back right away. So what's going on that's different here? What's different is on the CAS side, we're having to make a pass through all the data in memory to get distinct values, to get summary stats. And on the single store side, we're casting those analytics as SQL, and we're taking advantage of single store's SQL processor to return the distinct values and summary stats faster for this report. So there's other things that you get using single store. You get compression. So in CAS, we use SAS HDAT files. This data takes 208 gigabytes to store, and we've got to have that much memory to store it. On the right side in single store, they use a column level compression, and it takes 59 gigabytes. Single store also supports something they call unlimited storage, where databases that aren't used very often are automatically backed to your object store. It could be S3, it could be Azure Data Lake, and if you need them, as those tables are used or touched again, their single store automatically brings them back onto disk for use by the database. And as a database system, you also get grants and auditability and really fast data ingest.
Well, I just want to confirm with you really quick. You said that's a literal billion rows of data you were working with just now?
Yeah, these reports are built on 1 billion rows of data.
That is super impressive. If I wanted to learn more about how this all works, is there a resource you can point me to? Where should I start?
Yeah, we've got a great workshop on learn.sas.com. And there's also a blog article called Here Comes SAS Speedy Store on SAS Communities. You can also reach out to our product management team, and that's being led by Vincent Rajani, or feel free to drop me a note.
Perfect. I think you should prepare yourself for a large influx of emails coming your way.
Thanks, Tiago.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Massive thanks to Jason for an insightful conversation about SAS Data Accelerator. You know where else you can likely learn about SAS Data Accelerator in person? SAS Innovate 2026. I say likely because currently we're in our call for content period for SAS Innovate. This is a great opportunity to share your insights, solutions, and ideas with a global audience of SAS customers, users, and partners. Plus, as a presenter, you'll get all kinds of perks, including complimentary conference registration, complimentary hotel stay, and $500 to $1,500 reimbursement for airfare, depending on your location. Restrictions do apply. Visit sas.com/innovate to get all the details, and make sure to submit your content before the November 7th deadline. Well, that's a wrap on this edition of the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show. If you're watching this on YouTube, why not give us a like, subscribe to the SAS Users YouTube channel, and click that bell so you'll get notified for new videos and when we go live for our next show in December. Until then, like always, comment on what topics you'd like to see in future shows. I've been your host, Tiago de Souza. Thanks for watching, and remember, whether it's your data or your day, don't just move. Accelerate. I'll see you next time.